stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, please give us the grace to be understanding, patient, and tolerant. With these attributes, we can conduct our work in a manner which will be pleasing to Thee, our county, and its residents. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have the roll call, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
The following Planning and Development Commission members are present this morning. Robert Bass, Chair. Stacy Worthington, First Vice Chair. James Royce, Second Vice Chair. Richard Barnes, David Bramblett, Michael Facemeyer, and Kurt Stone.
Thank you. If any person decides to appeal any decision made by the Commission with respect to any matter considered at this hearing, he or she will need a record of the proceedings, and for such purposes, he or she may need to ensure that a verbatim record of the proceedings is made, which record includes testimony and evidence upon which the appeal is based. During public portions of the meeting, individuals are given 3 minutes, representatives of an organization are given 5 minutes. When anyone wishing to speak comes to the podium, please complete a yellow form to hand to the recording secretary. Please print your name, address, and the number of the application for which you are speaking on the form. The yellow forms can be found at the podium by the door. If representing an organization, a letter of authorization must accompany the speaker. Comments will be limited to the topic being heard. Please state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the tape record. At this time, we will open up to the public for any comments on any issues other than the applications before us. We'll have a public comment later on those. Seeing none, I believe we have no minutes and staff announcements.
Yeah, very quickly, we do have a new face in the crowd in the back of the room there. He's our new planner, Patrick Doty. You can wave. There you go. He comes to us from Lee County. He is also an AICP, certified planner, and a certified floodplain manager. So he'll be appearing before you on some upcoming applications.
Good. Welcome aboard.
Also going to embarrass Miranda for a moment. She passed her American Institute of Certified Planners national test. Very, very difficult test to pass.
Congratulations.
She is now an AICP. Joe Hockendahl also did. He's on vacation this week, but you can congratulate him at the next meeting. But we're very proud of both of them. That is a very incredible accomplishment.
Awesome. Congratulations to everyone. I think that's awesome because it certainly lends even greater credence to the work that we do.
It does. We now have 4 certified planners on staff, which is really exciting.
Really?
Yeah, so hopefully we can get some more done, I hope, having Patrick here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to the county attorney in her absence. So we'll talk about quasi-judicial. If any members have any quasi-judicial communication on application V2210, AA 2203, or CU 2208, and we'll start with Mr. Stone.
None. Site visits on all?
None.
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 Site visits on all?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If we could have an introduction to V22-10, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
V22-10, Keith Cook for Glenn and Gwendolyn Cook. Oh, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second here. This application is for a variance requesting a reduced right-of-way setback for a single-family dwelling. Aerial view of the subject lots. View of the subject property. Looking south on North Payne Terrace. Looking west on East Bradley Street. Looking east on East Bradley Street. Looking across Bradley Street from Payne Terrace. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant.
Thank you. If the applicant could come forward, please.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Keith Cook, and I'd like to shed a little light on this subject if I could. I'm a residential contractor here in Citrus County for about 25 years now. I live here and I love Citrus County. I've built over 220 homes here identical to the one we are asking for in the variance. About 180 of these are in the same neighborhood that we are asking for in the variance. I'm no expert on the LDC. I would consider myself well versed in it. I have built 3 or 4 of the same homes as the proposed one on corner lots in that same neighborhood with the same variance request in the past. The staff in years past always was of the opinion that the variances should be allowed, since the only reason for the variance was the lots were on a corner, requiring 2 street setbacks. The homes in that neighborhood were allowed because the LDC has clear instructions for a variance, allowing for the same home to be built on the same size lot in the same neighborhood. I was surprised to see the current report submitted by the current Land Development Division staff, and I feel I need to clarify a few of the findings. I happen to live across the street from the property in question on a corner lot in an identical house that I built as the one in question, and it had a variance approved years ago for a setback from the side road at 45 feet. I only built this one standard model, and in the staff report they said I could reconfigure a house that would fit on the lot in question without needing a variance. I can only assume they are not aware of the additional expense of my time and money this would require. In putting rough estimates to this option, including my time to make this happen, I have estimated it would cost me in excess of $85,000. The LDC also mentions a variance being allowed when a literal interpretation would place an unnecessary hardship on a landowner, either in time or monetary concept. The staff mentions that the special circumstances do not exist which are peculiar to the land from nearby properties. I would contend that the land being on a corner and requiring 2 road setbacks is the definition of a peculiar circumstance, which the LDC clearly allows for variances for peculiar land circumstances. The report also states there are 6 closest homes to the proposed site that were able to meet the 50-foot setback, which I am aware of since I built 5 of them. They are identical to the proposed home, but they are not on corner lots. They fail to mention that the closest one of the homes did have a variance to the side road setback since it is on a corner lot. The staff report says that the granting of this variance would be injurious to the area involved. I still don't understand where that comes from, as the county engineering department said they had no problem with the variance. In closing, I understand the intent of the LDC quite well, and there was a reason they left room for variances, and this is a classic example of a need for one. The LDC clearly states the need for a variance when the proposed uses and structures would not be incompatible with the uses and structures on adjacent and nearby lands. The variance we are asking for is the minimum that would allow this house to be built on this site. This exact home could be built on the exact same size lots in the same neighborhood, but because it is on a corner lot with peculiar circumstances, the need for a variance should be approved as per the LDC. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from staff?
Okay. Financial hardship's not a justification, unfortunately, for a variance. It looks like you can turn the house, completely just turn it, not change anything else on it, and fit it. So what's your reason for having to go this way rather than turning it?
I believe it does mention in the LDC about a monetary or
It says you can't. It
other
can't be a hardship.
hardship.
Right. It can't be a
Right.
hardship for monetary.
to face it the other way. I think that patio slab would come too close to it has to be 5 feet off the line.
It should be, yes, unless you
Yeah.
can get something from the neighbor, yeah.
Right.
So it's the patio slab would be the one thing you can't fit there?
Right.
I mean, because otherwise it looks like the house will fit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've built on a few of these lots in that neighborhood.
Right,
We're-
I know, I used to process your permits, I'm well aware of it.
We're pretty familiar with the neighborhood.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to understand why he wasn't flipping it, thank you.
I'd like to add too, if I could, that my house across the street there, they gave me a 45 foot from the center of the road variance. I would like to do that on this one if they can approve that here while we're here today. That would give me more than 5 feet from that property line to the side of the house. Which we're building another house just to the left of that house, and it would be awful close to that property line if we could change that to a 45 feet from the center of the road. We are able to meet the setback to the side of the property. It's just to the center of the road that we're needing the variance.
So you really would ideally, instead of a 48-foot center line, 23-foot property line, you'd prefer to have a 45-foot center line and a 20-foot property line?
Correct.
Okay.
That, when I first applied for this application, they told me I had to put the bare minimum variance that was needed to get to this stage.
Yes, you do. I just trying to make clear what your ideal
That's
situation
why
is.
in the drawing I did that, but if they can approve a 45 from the center of the road, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Nothing more, sir.
Any questions from the commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staff?
Jennifer Perkins, planner. This is variance 2210. The applicant is requesting a reduced right-of-way setback to place a single-family dwelling. This is an aerial view of the 4 lots that are included in this application. They total approximately 0.23 acres, and they take access from North Payne Terrace. This is a view of the subject property, and this is another view of the subject property looking along Payne Terrace to East Bradley Street. This is a view of some of the residences that are along East Bradley Street. As Mr. Cook indicated, the corner lot received a right-of-way variance in 2005 for a 20-foot setback from the edge of Payne Terrace. The building envelope is 4,500 square feet. The right-of-way setback from Bradley and North Payne Terrace is 25 feet. On the left is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. On the right, I've zoomed in a little. The applicant is wanting to place a 1,747 square foot single-family dwelling with a total building footprint of 1,908 square feet in a 4,500 square foot building envelope. He is requesting initially a 23-foot setback from East Bradley Street. The dwelling could be redesigned to fit within that envelope. Not all findings of fact have been found to be positive findings.
Need to put the site plan back up, please, Elizabeth?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
More?
No, I just wanted to have the site
Thank
plan
you.
I
back.
see, yes.
Any questions from commissioners? Just one curious question.
Yes.
You have one photo there that shows our sign indicating there's going to be an application in review, and there's also the sign, go
Yep.
back, next one. You have the sign there that shows permits in there. Did they start clearing the lot already? Because that sign is up. I was just curious.
No, and
Okay.
to my knowledge, when I looked, there is no actual permit on the sign. It looks like it's waiting for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to do math on the fly here, so my Crystal River diploma doesn't do me very well on that.
Do you want me to
So the
calculate?
lot is a 80-foot wide lot. There's 4 lots by 20 feet wide. It's a 80-foot wide lot. I want to know what the measurements are of that building envelope. Can we do that? It's like 4,500, so is it 100 by 45 or, 90 by 50?
Oh, you're talking about the building envelope?
Yes.
Okay, so, well, I'll have to do math on the fly too.
Right, so
So
80,
it's
we got a 5-foot setback on the one
40,
side. I can do that pretty easily.
16,
The building envelope looks like it's about 79 by 50, plus or minus. I
Okay, so-
measured that out before we came.
60 minus.
So then I'm looking at, and
110.
I'm just talking to Ms. Katu's option of spinning the house. It looks like the long side of the house is 40 feet with the garage side plus 10 feet for the porch. We've got about a 60-foot depth on the overall floor plan with a 52-foot wide width. I feel like that would fit inside that 4,500 square foot,
You mean
even with the
turned or
5-foot
as it
setback.
is?
Turned.
As is, but turned.
Turned,
Go back to the
facing
building envelope
Bradley.
one, please.
Sure.
You could shed a little light on that if you'd like.
hang on.
What did you say the setbacks were? Or the 75 by what?
It's roughly 80 by 50, that envelope.
The lot is 80 feet wide.
Right, but that envelope scares off roughly 80, if I got it right.
Takes off 30
30.
for the width, right?
So
And now
that'd
it's
be
120
50.
depth, so that would take off 30 as well. So it would be 90. So, yeah, you're very close, 50 by 90.
50 by 90?
I did not go to Bristol.
Okay, that's what I had.
She has better math than the two of us.
Right. And even at 50 by 90, I feel like that would still fit in there. So thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you very much. At this time, I'll open up the public portion of the meeting. If there's anyone present in favor of this application who would like to speak, please come forward to the podium. As a reminder, individuals have 3 minutes to speak and organizations have 5 minutes. When speaking on this application, please address the board. If you have any documentation that you want to be entered into the record, please provide a copy to the recording secretary. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? If there's anyone present opposed to this application who would like to speak, please come forward to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Going once? Going twice? 3 times. I'll return it back to the board for comments, conversations, and possible action. Anyone would like to open it up? I'll start. Looking at the building, it's 52 foot long, and he's asking for a 48-foot variance of 2 feet. If he made the house 50 feet long, he could keep it in the same direction that it is. So I don't see where the hardship exists for us to grant him a variance, and he also has the other option to rotate it. So I am not in favor of this variance at all. I mean, there are options that exist that he could still use this property.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think the applicant has said that he has built many of these particular types of houses to a standard design, so that may impose some problems with him modifying his materials as well as his construction process. I would like to hear from the applicant again, if we may, as to why he wants this particular orientation.
I think also maybe we were supposed to allow him to respond to staff.
You're correct. I was wrong. Sir?
Yes. Yeah, the building envelope that they put up there, it left out the room required for septic and driveways and different things. And so that wasn't actually the size that you could fill with a house. The reason I only build this one model over and over, it's in pretty high demand, and to believe it or not, to reconfigure it would probably cost me close to $80,000 in my time, and it just seems excessive. In the past, everyone was in agreement that wasn't a problem with the change in the center of the road setback. So we were hoping we could get another one.
Mr. Chair, if I can jump, if you turn it looks like the math fits, even your patio slab. And that's the exact same model, but a turn.
If it fronted on Bradley instead of Payne.
Right.
And still maintain 50 feet?
Right. The
Yes.
septic can go outside the envelope, so can the driveway. We don't really have that included. But looking at your depth, it looks like your house and garage is 40, and the patio is 10. You've got 50 feet to work with.
50
So
feet
I think that'll work for you.
would be 25 off the front line, so
Right.
the patio would be 5 feet off the back.
Right, and then you're going to do the 5 feet like you're proposing up there too. And I know you wanted more than that, but it looks like the same model can twist and get there and front off the other street. That's why I
Okay.
was asking if there was a concern.
And Bradley is paved and Payne is lime rock.
Correct, yes, you're right. You'd be coming off the paved street rather than the Lime Rock Street, which may be preferable anyway.
Well, okay.
So,
I'm
excuse me,
sorry, I
sir.
wasn't taking your whole thing. They
Yeah.
may have questions.
Is there any other questions?
So you are agreeable to rotate the house 90 degrees from what you have shown on your site plan?
Well, we'd rather not, because, most people wouldn't want to have their back patio slab 5 feet from a property line. It would make it less desirable, I think.
But as proposed, the left side of the home is going to be 5 feet from the property line.
Right. Correct. People don't usually sit out on the side of the house. They would sit on the patio slab there and have a little bit of space behind them.
But as you have it situated right now, they're going to be looking out at the street.
The patio slab?
Isn't that facing?
No,
Oh,
that's
sorry,
in the
it's facing
backyard.
the interior. I apologize.
that would be a wooded lot
Yeah,
behind there. and,
Sorry.
uh,
All right. But you are agreeable to rotate at 90 if that's,
That would be our only option.
okay,
It's not ideal.
okay.
I didn't think getting a variance again, since we've done so many of these the same way, would be a problem.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll just say real quick that, Mr. Cook, I've sold a bunch of your houses out there, so I respect you. I know the house and the product that you build. The board that we do, we take each variance on its merit, and in this particular instance, doesn't really matter to me what previous boards did or didn't do, but we've got an application that's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code, and 7 of the 8 findings of fact have been found false. So in that instance, the property doesn't show a hardship for me. I think with the 4,500 square foot building envelope and the math that I just had them help me do, the footprint fits in there. It doesn't fit exactly the way you'd like it, but I wouldn't be voting in favor of it. Just giving you the respect and letting you know.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Cook, I also just want to reiterate Mr. Bramlett's comments. While this seems like something that would be easy to approve, it's just the law that prevents us from being able to do so in this application.
Any other comments? Any other comments? With that, do we have a motion?
For the purpose of a motion,
Yes.
the Planning and Development Commission finds application number V-22-10 inconsistent with the Citrus County Land Development Code and is not in keeping with the intent of the policies of the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan, and that this board denies the application based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition.
We have first, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first from Commissioner Bramlett and a second from Commissioner Roy to deny the variance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. You're all set, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, if we could have staff provide us with an overview of AA 22-03.
AA 2203, Brenda McKenzie for Holland Properties Incorporated, Pass Beach, and Flanagan. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the land use, The applicant is requesting an amendment to the land use atlas map and the land development code to change the land use from coastal lakes and residential to low-intensity coastal and lakes for the purpose of being able to subdivide. This is an aerial view of the subject properties. This is looking at a small portion of the subject property, looking east on East Moccasin Slough Road, looking west on East Moccasin Slough Road. And that's it.
Thank you. Ms. McKenzie?
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, Brenda McKenzie with McKenzie Permitting and Consulting, and my office is at 7232 East Gospel Island Road in Inverness. This is Mr. Pospich. He is the owner of Holland Properties, and Richard Pospovich as one of the individuals. So if there's anything needed of him, he is here today as well. Brief summary. First of all, thank you, staff. We've been working with Joanna and Jennifer and appreciate their hard work. And but briefly, this is 132 acres. Is the pointer working today? Is it working today?
Who knows?
Okay. Could be me. Anyhow.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, the property to the left has an irregularly gold-shaped line. So we're trying to clear up that property line when we do the subdivision. And when he divides it up, each parcel is going to be 30 to 35 acres from 40 acre. It's only going to be 4 tracts that well exceed the 20-acre parcels. They're going to be 30, 35, and 40. And we meet all the criteria to do that. However, the front portion only along Moccasin Slough had a different land use designation than the back. So his property has 2 different zoning classifications. So we had to get the front strip, which is about 15 acres of his 132 acres, to all have the same zoning so we could move forward with the subdividing of the 4 large parcels. And we meet all the criteria for that. We just need to have the property to have the same zoning, not 2 different zonings. And we're here today that the board will see and meet approval of this. And like I said, Mr. Pospovich is here if you have any questions of the landowner.
Any questions from staff?
No, thank you, sir.
Any questions from the commission?
Where are the 15 acres in question that we're talking about?
Okay,
Will you show?
I do. I guess you can point to it.
This is the north piece of the section line right here. So this is the piece in question that needs to be rezoned. This is in another section, but they're all on the same deed. And it would be just that strip we're talking about right now, roughly 400 and some feet deep, half mile long.
And as long as we're pointing, this is the property that, see how it's irregularly? We're going to straighten out that property line so that it makes more sense and divide them up with straighter lines. We were all kind of surprised at that configuration. In order to move forward, we need to have it all have the same zoning. So the 132 acres, 15 of it is the only part that we need to rezone. 117 acres already has it. And we need to have the road frontage to meet the criteria. Each parcel has to have a certain road frontage.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staff, please.
Atlas Amendment 2203. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the land use atlas map to change the land use of a portion of the subject properties from coastal and lakes residential to low-intensity coastal and lakes for the purpose of subdividing. This is an aerial view of tracts A and B that make up the subject properties. They total approximately 134 acres. This is the current zoning, what was just referred to. That coastal and lakes residential portion is on the south, and it totals approximately 15 acres. Future land use shows that the entirety of the properties are low-intensity coastal and lakes. Just a few pictures here. This is looking from the southwest corner of Tract A to the southeast corner of Tract B. You can see where that road starts to curve in the distance. That's the entire length of those properties. This is the front of Tract A in the southwest corner. From the driveway, this is looking east on Moccasin Slough, west on Moccasin Slough, and some residences that are across Moccasin Slough. This is just a short portion of Tract B. The arrow indicates where you're at. It's just a short band of trees that are in front of the wetland. This is a gate that is at the southeast corner of Tract B. I'm not sure how far north it provides access. This is the vacant residential property that is to the east of Tract B and also looking further east on Moccasin Slough. This is a short portion of that large wetland looking from Moccasin Slough to the north and looking at it from the southeast corner to the west. This is an aerial view of the approximate locations of wetlands in the area, and this is the survey that was submitted by the applicant. Here they are together showing the wetlands and the survey lines. If the property is to be subdivided, they will need to meet access requirements. The applicant does appear to meet the intent of the comprehensive plan. Flying Eagle Preserve is to the north, and to the east and west of portions of the subject property. Policy 17.2.10 states that land uses adjacent to conservation areas shall, where possible, only allow for low-density residential development or agricultural use. Granting this request will not adversely affect the public interest and will be generally compatible with adjacent properties and other properties in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Thank you very much. At this time, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Going once, twice, 3 times. We'll bring it back to the board. Any comments from Ms. McKenzie?
Yeah, one real quick. I'm glad we have this screen up. That shows how Mr. Pochbis is wanting to divide it. So it's not wanting to be small little lots. This is for personal use. His daughter and granddaughter lives in the middle, the only home out there, and he's wanting to build his personal home to be close to his daughter and granddaughter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from commission?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in favor of this application. The property owner is going to a lower density, and so for the purposes of a motion, the Planning and Development Commission finds application number AA-22-03 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and the Citrus County Land Development Code, and that this board recommends approval of the application to the Board of County Commissioners based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition.
Second.
We have a first from Commissioner Worthington and a second from Commissioner Facemeyer. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If we could have an opening presentation from staff on CU 22-08.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
CU 22-08, Palmetto Capital Group LLC. This request is for a CU to allow for neighborhood commercial use for a discount grocery store in excess of 7,000 square feet in the RAC district. Aerial view of the subject property and surrounding area. This is the intersection of North Citrus Avenue and West Denellen Road. This is the survey submitted by the applicant. This is the master plan submitted by the applicant as proposed. That's it.
Thank you. If the applicant would like to come forward.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Ray. I'm an attorney with the Hogan Law Firm, and I'm here representing the applicant, which is Palmetto Capital Group. I do have present with me today Mr. Scott Lincoln, who is the project engineer, and Mr. Patrick O'Connor, who is a representative of the applicant. I did not see at the beginning where they were asked to be sworn, so I don't know if you would like to swear them in at this time. And I do anticipate having Mr. Lincoln testify as part of the application, and so would like to have him qualified as an expert witness before I get into my presentation, if that's okay.
We're fine. We're fine. We can just move forward. We'll have it noted on the record that he's an expert witness.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So with regard to petition CU 2208, this particular project, in your agenda, you do have a presentation that we submitted on your behalf, and I'll be working through that. Unless I have a, is this one here?
Unfortunately,
There it goes.
It is working. It's not a pointer, not just clicks, but not a pointer. All right.
Maybe she should give lessons to Brenda.
Briefly, we are seeking to put a Dollar General retail store in this location. The site is anticipated to be 10,640 square foot, which exceeds the 7,000 square foot, which is why we are here today for a conditional use. We are essentially seeking a conditional use with two requests for waivers, and then allowing the balance of the property to be developed in accordance with existing approvals. So it's located at 9976 North Citrus Avenue at the corner of Dunellen Road and Citrus Avenue. And it's approximately, the parcel is approximately 4.8 acres, located in a rural activity center in a general neighborhood commercial district. So to outline our request specifically for you, the conditional use is for about an extra 3,600 square feet of retail space for the discount store that exceeds the 7,000 square foot limit. Thus our request for the conditional use. We are asking for 2 deviations, and it relates to the cross-access easements. And I'm just going to note for the court reporter, I will slow down for you, ma'am. The cross-access easement on the northwest corner, as well as across the south, which we're labeling Lot 2, and I will explain that further. And then to have the balance of the remaining portion, which is about 1.7 acres, to be preserved for development as it's currently approved. If you look at the site plan, you'll see 2 red circles that identifies the 2 specific areas of the master plan related to the cross-access easements that we will discuss in further detail, but that gives you some site visualization of the size of the cross-access easements that we are potentially discussing today. So this request is consistent with your comprehensive plan. In the Rural Activity Center, it does provide for retail and personal services in an intensity and scale necessary to serve the neighborhood. And it does allow for excessive square footage beyond the 7,000 square feet, subject to your approval. You'll note that the surrounding area does note that this is in a neighborhood commercial and a commercial corridor along that intersection with the surrounding residential areas that will be supported by this neighborhood retail use. The basis for the additional square footage is that this is a new footprint for Dollar General, and it is becoming their standard footprint, to accommodate some of the new spacing requirements for COVID protocols to maintain the shopping experience while allowing for additional space within the store and not removing any of the merchandise. It does also allow for additional administrative and management space, meeting rooms, lunch rooms, and stuff for employees at that location. It will meet local neighborhood needs. If you look at this particular photo, you'll see the red circle and the red dot. The red dot is the proposed location for this application. The red circle is a 5-mile radius from that existing store, and you will note there's only one other discount retail store within that perimeter. And that serves about a population of about 11,000 people and about 4,800 households that would be served by this additional retail store in this location. All of the others are located outside that 5-mile perimeter, with one exception, which is the other Dollar General. So specifically, the 2 deviations we are looking for is the northwest cross-access easement, and this is based on some natural features that exist within the property. And then the southern cross-access easement relates to the size of the easement across the southern lot and potentially the timing of development. The applicant is aware that your code does require the cross-access easement and construction, and typically Dollar General does not grant cross-access easements by policy, but they recognize it is a policy position of the county to have the cross-access easement. We are asking for a waiver of the construction requirements and maybe potentially some discussion about whether or not the cross-access easement on the northwest corner is actually appropriate in that location, given the natural features and drainage flow that occurs there. And your code does provide for this. It is consistent with your comp plan, which says that development will be done with the intent to preserve natural features of the land, and it is also contemplated within your code where natural features that cause sort of physical infeasibility of certain requirements, alternative plans can be approved. So the request is contemplated within your code. And so with that, Mr. Lincoln. If you would mind, would you please just state your name and occupation for the record?
My name is Scott Lincoln with LA Civil Inc. My office is in Trinity, Florida, and I am the civil engineer for the Dollar General project.
And Mr. Lincoln, if you wouldn't mind, would you please outline on the diagram that we're looking at the cross-access easement northwest?
Is there a pointer?
The pointer apparently maybe is not working.
Right.
Okay, there it was.
No, you clicked it. Looked like you might have had it.
There it goes.
All right,
Just
so
press
you
and
hold-
hold temporarily. There you go.
Okay. Can we go back one to see the larger view? Yeah. There we go. Okay. This is the paving and grading and drainage plan for the Dollar General. This area that's in the rear of the site, what you can see here in the lighter and more non-linear contours that are shown on the map, you can see that there's a depressional basin that sits on this property. It's actually off-site as well. This depressional basin has been respected in our design in that there is drainage that comes off of Dunellen Road as well as our site and the neighboring site and goes into this depressional area. What we've done is we've designed around it to provide our stormwater in a more engineered fashion and then allow our stormwater to overflow into this depressional area. We've reshaped the depressional area slightly to not augment any stage or volume capacity of that depressional area. And in doing so, we've provided an uninterrupted situation here for both the roadway drainage that maneuvers into the depressional area as well as the off-site drainage. The complication here is that the county requires cross-access to the next property to the west, and there's so much going on here that we have interpreted the best option to be that we allow development to occur at some point in the future on the west parcel before any connection is made to that parcel. We can show you an exhibit of what it would look like to try and make a connection here, but just notice that this ladder of contours is heading down 12 feet into a depression or pit on this property that is abutting the neighbor's property. And it's leaving us with, if we build this cross-access, the infrastructure for it, we will have what looks like a bridge overpass that you would see on a highway. And we would be stubbing it there with a wall, and it would make no good sense from an engineering standpoint for the next developer to be able to connect to it. They really need to work on this property first and determine how they want to connect to this cross-access, and in doing so, they may want to connect a little bit lower and reshape on their side this depression. They may want to work with this owner and eliminate the depression and put it more to the rear of their property and pipe over there. There's a lot of engineering decisions that could be made that we feel if I can get this thing to work one more time. Oh, I guess it jumped on me. That's a zoom in of it. If we were, let me push that again. If we were to build this now, we're afraid we're going to be blocking drainage. We're going to be building way more infrastructure than is necessary to make a simple cross connection to a property. So we are proposing an easement. I think one of the things that Jennifer had stated was easements. We are proposing easements to the property line to give the next property owner the ability to connect and come in and do the work. But the infrastructure is the problem right now. So I don't know if you want to show that exhibit.
So as Mr. Lincoln indicated, this is the photograph of Dunellen Road heading into that corner that we are talking about where the natural drainage flow occurs. You can see sort of the dip in the road. From there, this is also included in your materials. These are the elevations, and if I'm just going to go back momentarily. I think that says it drops from a 43-foot elevation to 31-foot elevation. So that's the gap in space that we're dealing with. But there are some renderings. Let me get to the renderings and we'll come back. There are some renderings of what that would look like if constructed in order to accommodate the elevation drop and the depressional that Mr. Lincoln has addressed. And these are some renderings of what that might look like if it has to be constructed, thus prompting our request for a waiver of the construction requirements. So I am going to go back. Would you just briefly discuss the pre-development and post-development basin flow that you have depicted here?
Well, you can see up here it says pre-development basin 2. There's actually 2 basins on this property. Pre-development basin 2 is what incorporates this depressional area. And all the contours working around the site within this basin cause drainage to go into this area. I just wanted to mention that when I had driven this site last year when they were doing a feasibility study, there were areas much further to the south on Citrus Avenue that were flooded up to the edge of the road. And we thought immediately that there would be some concern that if we interrupted this, especially if it's handling drainage from the roadway, that it would become a major concern to the county and property owners and public works. So we've done our best to leave well enough alone. We think it should remain that way until this property over here makes some decisions on how to redevelop. But you can see everything's draining into here, and we think it ought to continue that way. We ought to minimize the infrastructure for any cross connection at this point, but give them an easement to be able to connect, and then some decisions can be made in the future.
To reflect that, there is a demographic or a graphic that shows the impact to preserve the basin based on the master plan. Okay, just a second. So that's the basis for the request for the construction waiver based on the natural feature, natural drainage, the change in elevation in that particular corner, which is why we're asking to waive the construction requirement. On the cross-access to the south, this is a platted lot at the 4.79 acres. There are discussions about replatting it to create 2 separate lots. So when we use lot 1 and lot 2, note that is not currently platted that way. It is a single parcel platted lot. We are asking also to waive the construction requirement of the proposed easement across that piece of property. There is a cell tower, so the development of that property will happen independent of the anticipated retail store. I will note that you can see in this particular photograph to the south, there is an RV sales lot. The same circumstance occurred with them, and they do have a cross-access easement on the south side that was not constructed. It is reflected in the public record, but it is not constructed. They do have the cross-access easement briefly constructed on the north end, but that is part of the entrance to their particular property. And so where you'll see here in this that is the portion, which is about 1.7 acres, which would include a cross-access easement, but again, a waiver of the construction requirements as that property gets developed at some point in the future. Also looking at this graphic, I do want to point out to you that I know the concerns regarding cross-access easement have to do with traffic and flow patterns out onto Dunellen Road. Please note that in this particular plat, there is Joanna Way, which is right here, which this parcel would have access to as another alternative access to Dunellen Road. So in reviewing the staff report, there specifically the one recommendation or condition of approval relates to that the cross-access easement be subject to engineering approval. And while we understand that need, we are specifically asking for a definitive condition that grants the waivers of the construction requirements for the cross-access easements as an alternative to the staff's proposed current conditions. So to conclude, we believe that this particular application is consistent with your comprehensive plan. It is consistent with your land development code. with the exception of the request for the 2 waivers, which are contemplated within your code. And I did not see in your particular comp plan the private property rights element, but the statute now does require that you take into account judicially preserved and constitutionally recognized private property owner rights for managing easement and access to their property. And so we believe that there is sufficient basis for you to grant our request both for the conditional use as well as for the 2 requested waivers. And with that, I will be glad to answer any questions you may have and would like to reserve time for rebuttal if I may.
Any comments from staff?
Yeah, you've seen staff's proposed conditions with the exception of the cross-access easement. Do you have any concerns about the other 6 conditions proposed?
The one, I guess, clarification with respect to that is in the staff report, we understand that there was some support from staff on the south cross-access easement, but it was conditioned on approval of a replat to create Lot 2. We are asking that that approval not be conditioned on the replat. It affects the timing of the project and the development of the retail store itself based on where they are in the process of that. So if there is a waiver and it is granted, which we are asking for, we ask that it not be conditioned on plat approval, allowing them to be able to move forward while that process plays out. I think other than that, we did not take issue with any of the other conditions that staff had identified in their report.
So she's addressing the cross-access condition, so the other 6 seem to be acceptable, and we will have our engineering staff address the cross-access deviation during our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Commission? I noticed that our staff made a comment regarding landscaping plans and lacking full data on the application as far as landscaping needs, buffering, and everything else. Just curious why the application didn't include that information, which obviously is critical for us to make our decisions on.
So we are not asking for any deviations or alterations to what the land development code would require with respect to landscaping or buffering. Those would be done with a formal site plan as opposed to the general master plan that's been provided. But the project would be developed consistent with your code as landscaping buffering requirements would be met. That is, we're not asking for any deviations or waivers for any of those. So it would be consistent with what your land development code requires.
Okay. I think that's all I have. All right. Anybody else?
I have questions.
Yes.
So you're an attorney and I'm not. And you talk about what does the wording of the northwest cross-access easement and future development when the property to the north is developed or to the west, like what does that wording look like? Because we haven't done something like that in the past.
So your code requires, and if I've re-paraphrased it in a way that your staff doesn't agree with, they're more than happy to insert that. Your code requires that the easement be provided so that adjacent parcels have access to cross the property to use your ingress and egress to the main thoroughfare. It is a traffic diversionary measure. It's also perceived to be less of an infringement on property rights than, say, a frontage road, which would require a taking, which is sometimes required. So it is an alternative to frontage roads. So in this particular case, the granting of the easement would grant the legal access so that the adjacent parcel, if developed, could connect to that property and have the right to enter and exit across that easement using the driveway, the ingress and egress to the main road. Typically, what your code requires is that easement be granted and constructed so that the roadway terminates at the property line. With respect to the northwest portion of this particular parcel, to do that would require the project to add, as we had shown, essentially a 12-foot retaining wall, because that would be where the terminus of the road would be. With the south, again, it would be granting the easement, so the legal right to use that property is there, but it would not be constructed so that there would actually be no paved or developed portion to be used in the immediate term, but that it would be developed at some point in a later term if the property were to be developed. As a clarifying point, the bottom 1.79 acres does have a cell tower which has some existing approvals, and it's not anticipated that any of those approvals will be changed or modified in any way. They will stay the same, and so development of that property would have to be consistent with any limitations that are there, which may require, depending on what goes there, modifications to where the ingress and egress are on that property. But the cross-access easement would allow them to use either the RV lot or the Dollar General site for ingress and egress to Citrus Avenue.
Right, so I know what cross-access is because we beat it like a dead horse here.
Understood.
We talk about it constantly. I'm trying to figure out what does that look like on your wording. So on this particular northwest corner, I see the block right there, and I understand the graphic, and I see the topography. I know that corner. Your engineer is perfectly correct. That particular area out there floods like crazy, especially most recently. Last year it was the most historical rains that we've had in that particular area. So with the easement wording that would be in there, the parcel to the northwest, the cross-access in question, they would be granted easement access, so then they would be expected to build the 12-foot wall, ramp, whatever we want to call it, or would that be onto the property owner of this particular property and the subject property for the two of them to get together and create whatever would be subject to the code and required for the cross-access easement there?
If the waiver of the construction requirement is granted, what it would contemplate is that at the time the adjacent parcel is being developed, based on the type of site plan they have, they would approach the property owner of the Dollar General to determine whether or not that cross-access easement works with their development or not. But that the construction cost of that easement would either be borne by the adjacent property owner or as negotiated between the parties based on where that cross-access easement would go. If there was discussion about relocating it based on the kind of development that goes in the adjacent lot.
Okay, so I understand what you're talking about, and I have questions from the staff regarding some of the things that you've said there. The southwest, so this particular 1.7 proposed lot 2, the plan is to develop this entire parcel, chop that 1.7 acres off, and then sell that off as a separate parcel for future development by somebody else?
There aren't any definitive plans about what to do with that portion of the lot, which is why within the conditional use application pertains to the entire parcel.
Right.
Simply preserving those. There is an intent to plat at that lot line, but at this particular juncture, whether it's going to be retained simply for the cell tower or subsequently developed at some point in the future is uncertain.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Miranda?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No Crystal River math on this one.
Poor Crystal River, I tell you.
Hey now.
They're not any worse than anybody else.
Okay, good morning. This application is to allow for a discount grocery retail store larger than 7,000 square feet in the RAC district. The property is located on the corner of County Road 488 and 495, both major collector roadways. The majority of the property is wooded, however, there is a small produce market on the corner of the intersection. There is also unpermitted truck rental and storage. Currently, there is also a tower on the southwest portion of the property that was approved with a prior conditional use, and those conditions are at the end of the staff report. The property is 4.79 acres in size and has a pending replat application to subdivide the property into 1.7 and 3.1 acre parcels. The 3.1 is proposed for the retail store and the 1.7 for the existing tower and for future development. The property is outside the planned service area. The property's future land use is the RAC district, the Rural Activity Center, and that is intended to serve the immediate rural community. So our land development code has a section that states neighborhood commercial uses can only be allowed up to 7,000 square feet, and the applicant is requesting 10,640 square feet. There is another similar store like this one located 1.85 miles south of this location. The applicant has provided some justification for this increase in square footage. And looking around the property, this is heading north on County Road 495. There are RV sales on the left, and then just above that is the subject property, and on the east is an RV park. Further down the road on the east, across from the property, there are small retail buildings and a small retail plaza. And this is looking at the subject property from County Road 495. And here's the intersection of the roadways. And this is looking at the subject property from County Road 488. And I took this photo of the tower. This is located internally to the site where it abuts the residential land uses. And this is the applicant's boundary survey. They have stated that all structures will be removed besides the tower. There are also large specimen trees located on the survey, so at the time of permitting, they'll have to address and mitigate those specimen trees. Here's the applicant's proposed master plan, and that includes the retail store and stormwater pond. The applicant meets LDC regarding parking, ISR, FAR, and the use in the building meets the comprehensive plan and land development code. They are, as you've heard, requesting 2 deviations from the cross-access easements. We do have a representative from the engineering division that can come up and talk about those requirements. There are 7 conditions proposed. As you've heard, number 5 may need to be revised, as well as they're also seeking a revision to condition number 2. But I'll have engineering come up here and explain those requirements, and then we'll go from there.
Good morning. Good morning. Cynthia Jones, Engineer 1 with the Engineering Division. With this particular site and its location, it's really important to be able to establish cross-access at this corner, as this is the first development coming in. I recognize that there is an existing depression here. However, sorry, let me look back at this. So the applicant had provided in their site plan the picture of the wall being 12 foot in height as pretty much kind of the only option of what would be able to be done out here. This cross-access could be a lot flatter, a lot steeper in elevation. This would be considered a fire department access road, and it could be as steep, according to their regulations. I checked with the building official this morning, as steep as 5%. So at a 5% grade for 70 feet, that's 3.5 feet, not 12 feet. And something like that, I wish they would have considered that as an option. It could be possibly something that could have been worked into this site plan. Scott Lincoln had mentioned that they regraded the site in front of the building. Am I holding the right thing? Sorry.
It's hit or miss, sorry.
This one up here. There it is. He had stated that they regraded this area here behind the building for the depression, but maybe with the consideration of a steeper driveway apron, perhaps with inverted crown roadway with a culvert or some sort of provision for drainage, perhaps, and some grading here, perhaps cross-access could be provided. I don't believe they've demonstrated to engineering division that the 12-foot option is certainly not the only option out there. They had also mentioned that I believe the attorney had mentioned that the RV sales office, which is adjacent to this, did not provide cross-access. They originally developed and they had to provide cross-access to the south, but then they purchased that property and they developed the whole thing. And so the property to the south of that RV sales business is residential. So cross-access is not required to residential properties, only to commercial properties. So that's a little bit different than this particular situation. I know there's some sites that have grade considerations, maybe similar to this, but we can think about the intersection of 486 and 491 where you have the county park and there's cross-access from there down the hill to Wendy's, to Wawa, around the corner. And that's really what needs to happen out here as far as providing cross-access. So we're still in support of providing cross-access on the northwest corner. The cross-access to the south, if they're able to get that subdivided, we wouldn't have an objection to them providing cross-access just to the south lot line. Because generally when you submit a building permit for a piece of property on a collector road, you have to provide cross-access to that south lot line. So it just kind of depends on where that south lot line is, whether it's a whole original parent parcel or the subdivided parcel. And I'd be glad to answer any questions if anybody has
Mr.
any.
Chair, can I follow up
suppose.
with just asking her, our expert, a question here? Many years
Yes.
ago, we used to do the condition that she's talking about where when the next property develops, then you put in the cross-access. And my recollection from a planning standpoint is that was never successful, being able to go back to that original property owner. Can you talk about that a little bit?
It just becomes problematic that there's great intent, there's an easement, and it just somehow doesn't materialize. An example is there's a gas station at the northeast corner of 486 and 491, the small little gas station there. And to the right of it, they're proposing a car wash. Well, that gas station has an access easement that's been on record for years and years that they will connect. Still hasn't happened. And the car wash is now coming in right adjacent to it. Still hasn't happened. You still have to get property owners to agree to make the physical improvements.
And
So
then what
it doesn't always work.
And then just to clarify what you're saying is, as you would support the cross-access to the proposed Lot 2 if that's subdivided, and then not that continued area, because that would be Lot 2's when they come in to develop,
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for
Yes, sir.
our expert. On that northern access point there, where testimony that I heard from them was that the water drains into that hole and drains onto the adjacent property.
Mm-hmm.
And shouldn't they, or are they required to maintain and close that in to maintain their stormwater as opposed to their stormwater draining on an adjacent property owners?
Well, they wouldn't be allowed to drain or flood their adjacent property owners, so that is certainly correct. But there's nothing that says that through their design they couldn't put a pipe here and collect stormwater from the county road into their drainage, that existing depressional area. So there's things that can be done engineering-wise as far as providing and ensuring that stormwater continues to drain where it should be draining.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll open it up to the public as a reminder.
Oh, yeah, staff, for rebuttal to staff.
I was going to let them go after. All right. Okay.
I believe your process contemplates public input.
Correct.
For rebuttal, so
Correct.
we're fine to wait.
Again, this is if anyone, let's start all over. If there's anyone present in favor of the application who would like to speak, please come before the podium. Come to the podium. As a reminder, individuals have 3 minutes to speak and organizations have 5. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Going once? Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Bill.
My name is Bill Hunter. I had not intended to talk today, but this issue of cross-access kind of got the juices flowing. I think the issue is the cross-access necessary? That's the decision you're making today. I understand the argument for waiving construction. It makes a lot of sense. But the people that are making sense today may not be the same people that are involved in the negotiation with the neighbor. When the neighbor comes in and develops, that negotiation, I could see it going south, and I could see no cross-access being developed. I don't know how you would craft a condition that says you have to build it at the time it's necessary. And I don't have a solution, but I think this is a slippery slope if you don't do something to assure that in the future the cross-access will be built. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Going once, going twice, 3 times. If you'd like to make any closing arguments or comments, more than welcome to.
Yes, sir, just a few. Mr. Lincoln's going to address a couple of things that were identified by your engineer.
Okay. I guess as an engineer, engineers get looked at in a couple different ways. They either are making things great or they're making things messy. And I think in the case of this depressional area, the history of your flooding in this area, we looked at this as what could happen to the west of us. We don't know. What's going on now and how do you deal with it? Well, we looked at it as we have to meet a certain grade to come off this roadway. We're kind of stuck with an elevation of 43 right there. This depressional area is very large and goes on to the other person's property. That's one of the biggest concerns, is you can't just modify this thing any way you want without affecting that neighbor. So we did as little as we could to modify it. We even looked at draining our drainage into it, and we said, let's not do that. Let's not make it complicated. Provided our own drainage. And we looked at, well, what happens from elevation 43 if we try to make the cross-access connection today? I could dive a road down very low in here, but it probably won't serve them any better than if I come up high. So I'm left with which way would they want it. So if I was that developer, I'd want to make the decision, even if it cost me a little money or some negotiation, and I'd want to welcome the fact that I have an opportunity through an agreement to get over to that access. Now, we did represent, there is another road over here that if they want to avoid this situation altogether later, they can access that road. Now, the two uses wouldn't interconnect, but I don't see that it would be that problematic if they didn't connect. Where I want to go with the 5% discussion for the fire department, right now the fire department won't be going anywhere near this, so the 5% probably is a little irrelevant, but if we did run 5% over 80 feet, it could be 4 feet lower. So that bridge abutment we showed you could be 8 feet tall, but then we showed you one that had an exhibit that had water shown in the depressional area. That's placed right at the elevation where that could fill up. It could fill up a little higher depending on the excessive rains we experienced last year. So we're looking at this as give the next developer and this property owner the opportunity to make some better decisions as to how they want to connect, and or if they don't want to connect, and not augment this situation too abruptly at this point. Right now, the drainage from about here over moves down through here, and it can freely still get in here. If we block this, yes, we may have to put in piping, we may have to put in collection, we may have to shape a ditch. It starts to really mushroom into something that is unnecessary but would go well if we knew what was going on over here. The only thing I wanted to say about this southern access, we have a lot of trees, possibly some specimen trees. The developer is going to hold on to this parcel, possibly sell it to the tower owner, possibly sell it to another developer, and I think there is a condition that says this lot must seek access through the Dollar General. So we know there is going to be an easement here no matter what. There's no reason to think that somebody who develops this lot is not going to make this connection. And certainly if we don't see that the RV owner is looking to cross all the way into the Dollar General at this point. They seem to have stubbed their access here, but they didn't do any further infrastructure to the south for other reasons. But they've gated themselves off and almost built their cross-access point as, yeah, we're required to put it there, but who knows. So we're looking at it as, there should be, did I go to the wrong direction here? Well, you'll have to do that. As the most appropriate thing right now is to limit the infrastructure so some better decisions can be made.
I would ask that the presentation the applicant has provided in your materials be added to the record for purposes of today's hearing. The other is that while there may be some alternatives to the proposed access in the northwest, I would caution that while a property owner is obligated to mitigate its own stormwater impacts from its proposed development, adding burdens to them to contemplate other off-street stormwater flooding as a result of this requirement puts an added burden on them, relieving the adjacent property owner of their shared burden in dealing with stormwater management. And so while we understand there are alternatives, it's what is the best alternatives in light of the development at this time. And as the member of the public indicated, is cross-access necessary? While your code requires it because it often is necessary, but this particular adjacent parcel does abut a side street that has an alternative ingress egress to Dunellen Road immediately connecting to the property. So whether or not this particular corner is the ideal location for that is going to be highly dependent on what goes in that particular parcel. And so with that, we ask that you approve the conditional use request for the increased size of the retail store for the 10,640 square feet. We do ask that you grant both requests for deviations that would allow to waive the construction requirement on the cross-access easements. As your staff noted, that once platted, the cross-access easement becomes irrelevant because it's no longer required to actually be there. But as you've heard Mr. Lincoln indicate, that it is a notation that would require that parcel to seek access through the Dollar General location. And so with that, I'm here to answer any other questions you may have, and we'd request your approval of our application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions or thoughts on this application before we go for a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I am in support of the conditional use application, but not with changing the conditions in the staff report and waiving cross-access, but I will look forward to input from engineers on this board.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to comment?
I echo Commissioner Worthington's comments. She articulated them very well, and although I don't always agree with our engineering department, I think they're spot on in this situation.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Stone.
I go through this intersection about 3 or 4 times a week. Traffic coming from the east on Dunellen Road moves very fast, and as they have shown, the sight distances are poor. traffic approaching this intersection from that direction. Consequently, I think the cross-access in the northwest corner of this piece of property is perhaps more important than it would otherwise be for traffic to access around the intersection. I also think that the larger building request exacerbates the problem that they have with providing cross-access in the north there. And I think the request to delay or to say that they would let the future property owner, adjacent property owner, work it out with the existing property owner here, just shifts the cost and responsibility to some future adjacent property owner. So I would not be in favor of this application as presented.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would just, I'm not really sure I have a problem with the increased size, if that's the footprint, and if they can make it work based on the conditions and the things that we discussed at this meeting. We have a case study only 1.8 miles down the road, and I'm on this road a lot, and the traffic that these stores create and that is already being created in Citrus County is abundant. There are accidents at that Dunklin, Dollar General, Jiffy Store corner right there constantly, 2-3 a week sometimes. I feel like every time I drive through there. Anything that can be done at this particular corner to help alleviate traffic having to pull in and out and off and on, it should be done, in my opinion. I think that the Mr. Lincoln and the engineering, some of the statements that he made, I don't agree with them. I think that if you're the developer that develops first, then you hold the cards. We don't wait till the guy develops next to you. You just develop what's best for you, and then that guy, he wasn't there before you, so he just has to fit and make it work with whatever you design there. Like Ms. Worthington said, as far as all of the engineering there in that corner, the only thing that I know that I can go by is what Ms. Jones tells me. So I'm going to side on the engineering and the staff report on that particular corner. I'm not going to agree with the deviation there. And then I need to understand the deviation on the southwest or the south side of the property there. It looks like they have the crosshatched area, which is what is intended. They're already going to intend to create that cross access to the south to the property line, the proposed property line for the 1.7. So if the staff says that it's okay that they create that, and then if in fact in the future they do decide to do something different with that parcel, that cross access will be required by that owner anyway. The cross access from the RV the RV sales is already there. And again, anything that they can do, I liken this to the racetrack in the Lecanto at the 486. I'm sorry, the 44 and 491. They have that really long service road that gets additional traffic further away from that intersection, where you'd be going south on 491, and in this particular area, it's just only going to continue to get more and more congested. So whatever we can do to move traffic further away from the intersections is what I'm in favor of.
Any other comments? I agree that both of these access should be built. The argument that the applicant made relative to the adjacent street, that new lot could be used that's north of the general site, they would still have to put cross-access in. That's our requirement. There's no other place for this cross-access to go based on what I see. You have that low spot, you have your own drainage system, so you're locked into where that cross-access would have to go. As our engineering staff noted, that could be redesigned or designed to have a 5% grade. So there are options that could work there. Culverts may have to be put in, so there's no reason, in my opinion, not to have that access built at this time. Our goal is to try to keep some of this traffic from bouncing in and out of developments, and this is what you would be having if we didn't have that cross access. On the side along North Citrus Avenue, again, cross access is required. It goes up to the storage facility or the RV site, we'll have to have them open that up at that point in time when this is completed. So there is zero reason in my book as to why we should not follow staff and require that this applicant build both of these access points at this time. Any other comments? Any other questions?
And Mr. Chair, I'll just point out, condition number 5 is currently worded that cross-access must be provided or is otherwise approved by the engineering division, which gives them the ability to continue discussing. You heard a lot of design options, especially on the northwest side with engineering. So although that you're looking at this particular site plan, they are going to be allowed to work with engineering on a acceptable cross-access configuration.
Okay.
If this is approved.
Okay. In regards to the proposed conditions, I believe we had talked about condition number 2, needing some
Does that need something?
wordsmithing.
No, it does.
Because of what they want to do with it.
The applicant did mention condition number 2, but I don't think that applies. It says if proposed lot 2 is created, it'll just allow for future development as allowable, by the zoning in the LDC. So I don't think that does apply. I think condition number 5 is the only one that talks about cross-access.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm
yes.
sorry, there was some wording, though, that we would have the cross-access end there if that was replatted for Lot 2. So do we have to include that in a condition?
No, that's actually already required under LDC that you only have to go to your property line. So if proposed lot 2 suddenly exists, then their property line is now where it's shown and not all the way off. So I don't think we need to specify that.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
For the purpose of a motion, the Planning and Development Commission finds application number CU-22-08 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and the Citrus County Land Development Code, and that this board approves with conditions the application based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and the conclusions regarding this petition. It has been determined that approving the proposed conditional use will not adversely affect the public interest, that there is compliance with special rules governing individual conditional uses of the type involved, that the proposed development with conditions and safeguards attached would be generally compatible with adjacent properties and other property in the district, and that the PDC is empowered under the section of the LDC described in the application to grant this conditional use.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a first from Commissioner Worthington and a second from Commissioner Barnes. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion carries 6-1. Thank you very much. And with that, we have...
You have 3 applications on your next meeting. One of them may be pulled, but we'll let you know as soon as we find out otherwise. Ms. Cheryl and Ms. Liz, nothing in August, correct?
Correct.
Both meetings, you have a vacation. August, we'll see you in September. It's just the way things time out. So one more meeting, and then we'll have a month off.
Thank you very much.
Yay.
Yay.
Not that you don't love to come in and see us.
Right,
Yes.
we love you guys. With that,
That would be
adjourned.